Welcome back, Rulers, to the Yearbook, the series that looks at rulers of the past and where they are today. And today's ruler is a favorite of my own, and one of the rulers I was most excited for back in Rhea Cluster, Shaela, the Mermaid Princess. Let's begin.
Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session.
When we first met Shaela, the Mermaid Princess in Rhea Cluster, she was one of the 5 rulers that were given a very unique mechanic when they were included in the structure decks for that cluster. If you look at the starter deck versions of the 5 rulers released, you'll recognize there was some text on there that you couldn't read. The idea was that the rulers would acquire a sealed weapon that would unlock their hidden potential throughout the lore of the cluster and with the addition of new sets that helped to expand that lore. With those new unlocked rulers, you would even receive newer artwork depicting the ruler with their new sealed weapon. Now that's pretty cool, am I right? Now, that might seem pretty great all at first. However, there were some obvious logistical issues that would come with these unlocked rulers. First, you would need some newer versions of the rulers, even though upon release of those newer rulers, those unlocked rulers, there would be an official errata to your older cards. However, you still couldn't read the older versions, and thus newer players would have issues if they picked up the starter decks later on when those rulers had already been released with their newer text. To know the effect while playing with this old printing of the ruler that you were using, you would have to print out the effect that was new to those cards and have it close by so that you and your opponent could reference it during gameplay. Second, if a player wanted a newer version of that ruler, they would either have to open a copy of that ruler in their boxes, or they would have to buy it on the secondary market. But what made this different from other rulers was that the idea that the newer artwork offered a collector's value to that card, which oftentimes would drive up the price of that newer ruler. So at the time of these cards' release, the rulers were actually more expensive than probably intended. And then an unintended third issue arose if you were trying to get one of those unique rulers that were released only in boxes, and then you would get a copy of a ruler that you already had. These issues would all be remedied in later sets, of course, by offering a ruler as a box topper, or even offering rulers outside of the boxes themselves in starter decks, and then keeping those rulers separate from the sets released in that cluster. Now, all of this being said, today we're going to be talking about the fully decked out, fully released and unlocked Shaela, the Mermaid Princess, who upon release had the unique weather mechanic associated with her. This mechanic, which currently consists of both rain and thunderstorm as of the making of this video, granted you different effects depending on the weather that was active on the field. To help with this mechanic, some cards were released to grant you different weather effects, but by far the most helpful and the most useful was Lightning Cave, which can not only change the weather to rain or to thunderstorm if it was already raining, but it could also remove flying and swiftness from J resonators that were not of the water attribute. Of course, Shaela herself could also produce thunderstorm on her front side and on her J ruler side if it was already raining. Not all thunderstorm and rain support was created equal though. For instance, Magic Electric Warrior has all the hallmarks of being a strong Shaela support card, but has the drawbacks of being a golem with the mobilize effect. And it only has an effect when it's attacking or blocking and when it's thunderstorming. By all considerations, this might be a relatively well-balanced effect, but there were other cards that were present at the time of this ruler's release that were much better, such as Glistening Chick, which has the same cost as the Golem without its restrictions. Compare that again to Mega Thunderfish, who gets swiftness and plus 200 attack and defense when it's thunderstorming, and you can notice an immediate difference in quality. Mega Thunderfish even gets a bounce effect if it's raining, even when it's not thunderstorming. It's useful, which means it has more utility and momentum associated with it than something like the Magic Electric Warrior. Shaela decks on the competitive circuit were able to utilize the Golem as well as Thunderfish and other support to not necessarily win any tournaments, but they did top a couple of times. One deck that topped was in the 2019 Sydney GP, which took place in the middle of Rhea and New Valhalla format. The deck was piloted by Floyd Holmes for a spot in the top 8. Well, what you'll notice is, in this format, the loss of dual stones actually helped to raise Shaela's ship, and put her in some competition with other meta decks at the time, even with the advent of the powerful rune decks at the time like Brunhild. Shaela placed in the top 8 once again 6 months later in the 2019 Toronto GP in August, where Brett Stein was able to pilot his version of the deck that focused on early aggro with Soaked Panda and sported a full playset of Berry Ball for defense. For many players at the time, Shaela was considered to be an underdog pick, a kind of aggressive yet controlling ruler that put up a lot of resistance despite the power of the new rune rulers that were released at the time. Shaela's support was never absolutely broken, but it did more with less in the long run. And she didn't really hit her stride until dual stones were rotated out of the format. But those players who wanted to get the most out of this ruler were able to do so thanks to their ingenuity and some smart gameplay on their part. We here at Ruler School would suggest building Shaela for Conqueror, Epic Stories, and Pauper formats, with the understanding that Shaela's generic support has been greatly improved upon with the release of water attributed cards that do what older support did, but better. For instance, we mentioned Berry Ball earlier in this video, but now we have Shaela's Thunder Parasol, her sealed item, as an actual card. Now this is, in general, just a better support card for Shaela, because it does what Berry Ball does, but better. So in building Shaela, you may be leaning more toward modern support, but there are still some useful cards from Rhea Cluster that can help you in deck construction. With this newer support, Shaela has turned into a mid-range control ruler, who can destroy a J Resonator with her God's Art ability, which also rests your opponent's entire board at instant speed. Given its cheap cost, but Shaela's relatively expensive judgment cost, this is an effect that becomes more available to you when you're already ahead and can seal the game for you if you need that win. Her Resonator support even got better as time went on, giving Shaela powerful Resonators outside of Mega Thunderfish. For instance, Chelina, Sorceress of Sending Back, is a powerful one-cost answer to expensive Resonators, who also has the effect to put Resonators on the bottom of the opponent's deck instead of placing them back in the hand if she's already been on the field for a turn. Fiola is another new card that can help you simplify deck building by denying your opponent the effects of their chance on the chase. Also, when she goes to the graveyard, you can remove Fiola to give your Shaela a much needed power boost. Now, in terms of starting the game, there are some cards like Cheshire Cat, the Grinning Remnant, and Perceval, Charmed by the Grail, which help you to dig for your powerful control cards that will help you eventually seal the game. Now, in my own experience, testing has shown that Lightning Cave isn't necessarily needed with additional support, and can potentially be placed in the side deck, as newer support doesn't require Rain or Thunderstorm to be present for optimal effect. Also, the effect to deny your opponent flying and Thunderstorm isn't as relevant in Game 1. However, in the case of the card Thunderstorm, which puts all of the Resonators on the field on the bottom of the deck if it is thunderstorming on the field, you may want weather to be accessible. Knowing when to use Shaela's weather-changing abilities becomes important for you in this version of the deck. And most recently, Shaela's spiritual descendant, Olivia, Thunder Empress, has introduced some additional support that can help supplement Shaela's earlier support and offer her powerful effects that don't target or even just blow away your opponent's board altogether. Looking at some of the newer support, such as Dolly, Olivia's Electric Dolphin, you can help take advantage of some of the more powerful effects that are included in Olivia's suite of support, and that might even become a new variant of Shaela in the Conqueror format. Shaela, the Mermaid Princess, is a fan favorite, included by yours truly, because the tempo inherent in the weather mechanic allows for unique gameplay and interaction with your opponent. Time will only tell if we get more weather mechanics added to the game, and if we do, let's hope that they remember to support our favorite Mermaid Princess. Now, let's talk about you. What weather mechanics would you include in Force of Will? Is it an interesting mechanic to you, or would you rather see it retired? Let us know in the comment section down below. Or maybe you want to tell us your favorite ruler down in the comment section. Your ruler could be featured in the next upcoming yearbook video. Looking for more? Watch my recent match with Jeremy Franklin to see this version of the deck in action, as Shaela competes against Grimm, the Prince of Fairy Tales. Now, admittedly, the deck list in that video is a little dated, since newer cards have come out since then. But it's still fun to watch, so I'm going to guarantee you're going to enjoy your time there. And with all that being said, until next time, rulers, class is dismissed.